Being that this was the first time that I read this specific report, I have to admit I wasn't all that shocked. This is not a new phenomenon. Where their bodies were found and where they were discovered and how they're discovered really falls out of this purview of what we would call and think about the ideal victim being. There's a lot of scholarship around this sort of idea and conception of what the ideal victim is. We can sort of think about like an image of what an ideal victim would be, right? Someone vulnerable, someone who's overpowered. But what I think is also important to think about is like what other sort of imagery comes to mind in terms of like stereotypes. You know, white women have largely been the ideal victim, especially portrayed within the media. There's a theory that's called the missing white woman syndrome. And it's this idea that there's an overwhelming sort of presence of young white women that go missing, and their stories are streamlined by the media.
What is the 3-year-old's name? Haley. Anthony.
This little girl seems to have been completely forgotten.
But there's also a theory that talks about the victims of missing white women syndrome. It's Native and it's Black women. This story and these stories of these 51 cases, while there are white women that are included in these cases, 76% of these cases were Black women. And so it's thinking about why aren't their stories sort of captured and streamlined in the media, in the mainstream media? And a lot of it has to do with viewership, right, and ratings. Often when Black missing women's stories are narrated or highlighted, they're very extreme cases. They're cases in which these women experienced an extreme amount of violence.
A frantic father canvassing a neighborhood, praying the body of a woman burned in a garage overnight doesn't belong to his missing 16-year-old daughter.
It's like, you're only going to get attention if your story is sort of seductive and intriguing and can be turned into this crime TV show or a documentary, if you will. And so it's thinking about this idea that like, oh, serial killer? Ooh, this adds intrigue and mystery. To me, the message is very clear. It's these lives are valued and these lives are less valued or not valued. Do I believe there's a serial killer in Chicago? No, I do not. I do not believe that this is one particular person. Do I think that there are connections to these women? You can't deny that, right? Where their bodies are discovered, the racial groups of these women, but I think the perpetrator of these crimes is systemic racism. 51 women who've lost their lives are not valued, and that's a sad reality, but it's an unfortunate reality.